Hello everyone, this is Kuleshwar Kumar Sahu, and today in mathematics I am going to take a very important and easy topic of our daily life, that is probability. So probability is using in our daily life. So what is probability? Now what is probability? The probability is chances. Probability is chances, or we can say the probability is uncertainty. Where the things are uncertain, we use probability. The things are uncertain where we use probability. So like examples, if today it will be raining or not, so it is probability. We are not sure that it will be rain or not. Okay, so likewise same, if you are taking an example of dice, if dice is thrown, what will be the chances of getting 1 or 2 or 3? It is anything, it will be anything, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, anything. So this is called probability. So here we will discuss about the probability. There are two approaches of probabilities. The one is experimental approach and another is theoretical approach or classical approach, we can say. So in class 9 we learn about the experimental approach of probability. So what is an experimental approach? Like in experimental approach, probability of any event will be equal to number of trials in which event happened, number of trials in which event happened, divided by total number of trials. So in class 9, this is experimental approach, that the probability we did in experiments. Like first I will take an example of coin. If a coin is tossed 100 times, a coin is tossed 100 times, means experiment is already done. The coin is tossed 100 times, will get head 48 times and tail 52 times. So the question is, what is the probability of getting head? What is the probability of getting head? So the probability of getting head, PE, is equal to head comes how many times? 48 times. So the number of trials in which event happened. So event happened how many times? 48 times. And total number of trials. So how many times we tried? How many times we tossed the coin? We tossed the coin 100 times. So the probability of head is 48 upon 100. So in in experimental approach, we did like this in class 9. So in class 10, we are going to learn theoretical approach. This approach is also called a classical approach. So what is theoretical approach? So here we never experiment the things. We never experimentally did do the things, that we directly ask what is the probability of any event. So in class 10, the probability of any event E will be equal to the number of outcomes, the number of outcomes favorable to event E divided by total number of possible outcomes. Total number of possible outcomes. So here, if I am taking an example of coin, and asking the question, what is the probability of getting head? So it is very simple. The total number of possible outcomes in a coin is 2, either head or tail, and the number of outcomes favorable to event E. So event is head. So how many times head will come if a coin is tossed once? So there is only one head in a coin. So the number of outcomes favorable to event E is 1. So the probability of getting head is 1 upon 2. Same as if I am taking an example of a dice. If a dice is thrown, what is the probability of getting number 3? So what is the probability of getting number 3? Just try to do. total number of possible outcomes in a dice is 6. So in denominator we write 6. Total number of possible outcomes in a dice is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. 6 numbers are there. So the total number of possible outcome is 6. And what is the favorable outcomes of 3? How many times 3 are there? So only one time. So the possibility, the probability of getting 3 is, if a dice is thrown, is 1 upon 6. So same as we do the question. So in class 10 there are few keywords in a probability that we are going to discuss about. So first is experiment. So what is experiment? A process which results some well-defined outcome. A process which results some well-defined outcomes is called experiments. Now what is outcome? So the outcome is results of experiment. What is outcome? Outcome is results of experiment. Okay. The next is random experiment. What is random experiment? What is random experiment? That can't predict outcome. That we can't predict outcomes. Okay. If we can't predict outcome, that experiments are called random experiment. Now, what is sample space? Sample space. Most using keyword is sample space in probability, or we denote this by capital S. So the sample space is set of all possible outcomes. Likewise, if I am taking an example of coin, so in coin there is two. If a coin is tossed, there are only two possible outcomes. One is head, another is tail. So the set of head and tail is called sample space. So S is equal to HT. Okay. So next is equal likely outcomes. So what is equal likely outcomes? If the outcomes, or what is equal likely outcomes? If the possibilities of outcomes are equal or same, that they are called equal likely outcomes. Or what is unequal likely outcomes? Whose possibilities of outcomes are not equal. And same as, now next is event. So what is event? What is event in probability? So the event, we know about event, everything in our life happening is called event. Okay, so happening is event. Anything like what is the probability of getting head? So head is happening, so head is event. What is the probability of getting 3 in a dice? So 3 is happening, so 3 is a event. So there are two types of event. One is certain event and another is impossible event. Or one is sure event. Certain event is also called sure event. So if the probability of any event is 1, that is called surety. So that events are certain, means we can say certain to happen. It will definitely rain. Matlab it is certain. Okay. The one is next is impossible event. So if the probability of any event is 0, means impossible. So what is the probability of getting 7 if a dice is thrown? If a dice is thrown, how can we get 7? So this is called impossible event. So the next is elementary events. So what is elementary event? So the events whose there are only one possible outcome. There are only one possible outcomes. These events are called elementary event, and the sum of all the probability of an elementary event is always equal to 1. Like one example of a dice. If a dice is thrown, what is the probability of getting 1? It is 1 upon 6. What is the probability of getting 2? It is 1 upon 6. What is the probability of getting 3? It is also 1 upon 6. 4, 1 upon 6. What is probability of getting 5? 1 upon 6. And what is probability of getting 6? It is 1 upon 6. And the sum of this, all the elements, these all are called elementary event. 1 upon 6, 1 upon 6, these all are called elementary events. And the sum of all these elementary events is equal to 6 upon 6 or equal to 1. Okay, so elementary event. The next is total number of outcomes. How can we find the total number of possible outcomes? So here is a formula of finding total number of possible outcomes. So if we are talking about coin, so in the coin there are two possible outcomes, one is head and one is tail. So in a coin there are two faces. So write 2. If there is one coin, it is 2 to the power 1. If there is two coin, 2 to the power 2. If there is three coin, the number of possible outcomes is 2 to the power 3, and so on. So the formula is 2 to the power n. Okay. So for a coin, the total number of possible outcome is 2 to the power n. N is where n is what? N is where n is number of coins. So the more number of coins we use, the more number of outcomes we get. If we use one coin, the total number of possible outcome is 2. If we using two coins, the 2 to the power 2, that means possible outcome is 4. If we using three coins, the total number of possible outcome is 2 to the power 3, that means 8. And if you using 4 coin, total number of possible outcome is 16, and so on. Okay. So if we are talking about dice, so in a dice there are 6 faces. So if I am taking one dice, so it is 6 to the power 1, means total number of possible outcome is 6. If I am taking two dice, so the total number of possible outcome is 6 to the power 2, that is 36, and so on. So for dice, the formula is 6 to the power n. Okay. So the total number of possible outcomes for a dice is 6 to the power n, and so on. And if I am taking playing card, so how many playing cards are there? So there are 52 playing cards are there in a single deck. So the total number of possible outcomes is 52. Okay. So likewise, according to this formula, in next video, we'll solve the problems of probability. Thank you.